Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the December 5th meeting of the Village of New Paltz Planning Board. Tonight, we have a few things of administrative business, and one public hearing and two other application reviews in the agenda. I'd like to start the meeting with by looking at the minutes from the last meeting on November 21st. Did everyone get a chance to take a look at those? Are there any issues with those?
The minutes from the last public hearing for the New Paltz Apartments, part of that?
No, I believe that
That's
the
separate.
last, yeah.
Do we have to accept that because we got a copy of that? Are we gonna accept that tonight?
Transcript?
Yeah,
I
We
think
just have to accept the minutes.
I just saw a couple of things in that transcript. I thought.
Oh, okay. Well, we should, maybe you can,
Okay. Well, in that case, I'd like to get a motion to approve the 11/21 minutes. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Abstain.
Rich just asked if he's voting, so do you need his vote?
Oh, yeah, I prefer if he was voting.
Oh,
Rich?
thank you. I'm in favor. Aye.
Okay, great. Next up, are there any updates from the village board or Ulster County Planning Board? Do we have Bill Murray and?
Yes,
Sonny?
thank you. A couple of quick things. This month.
Thank you. Are there any updates from the Environmental Policy Board? They met since,
We agreed that Ted Nitza was going to write a response. I believe. And we haven't had a chance.
the New Paltz Apartments?
Yes. They haven't, the Village Environmental Policy Board hasn't submitted comments yet. And so I believe he agreed to do that, but I don't think he has yet. And when he does, we'll revise them, vote on them, and
Great,
send it in.
thank you. Next up, I would like to open the public comment section. If anyone here has a comment that unrelated to the New Paltz Apartments project, just about other projects or general board business, please speak now. Okay.
Yes, I'm not sure
Yes.
whether or not this is related, but I do wanted to know the status of the proposal for annexation, which I see as being,
Right.
in reading the material, it was not clear that this was part of this EIS.
So that is the New Paltz Apartments project. So we will
the
be having.
annexation is part of that. So
Yeah.
if the site plan section is approved, it's an automatic annexation. or not?
No, we will be discussing this in the next section, the public hearing, and we'll hear more from our attorney about what the process looks like.
Okay, good.
So if there are no public comments, then I'd like to close the public comment section and move on to. Yeah, I think there was just some confusion about public comment versus public hearing, so yeah, I'd like to move on to the public hearing, and could I have a motion to open the hearing for PB 21AX?
So
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. So first, I'd like to call Dr. Oh, yes.
Can we introduce it? Can we read
Right.
The description.
Yes, sorry. Okay, so PB 21AX New Paltz Apartments. The applicant is proposing to construct a 250 plus or minus unit student housing campus consisting of townhouse and cottage style homes with a clubhouse and fitness center, pool and patio area, associated parking, active recreation area, and nature trail on the 2 parcels containing 129 acres located along Route 32 South and Cross Creek Road, currently within the town of New Paltz. The proposed action includes an annexation of the parcels into the village of New Paltz, rezoning of the parcels currently zoned R1 in the town of New Paltz to R3 under village of New Paltz, and a subdivision lot merger that will result in 4 separate lots. The proposed development will be located on a single 60-acre lot, and the remaining 3 lots will remain vacant or is currently developed with the existing single-family homes. And I'd like to turn it over now to our attorney to just explain the process a little more and what happens in the next step.
Sure. We discussed this last meeting, but for the benefit of those who weren't here the last time, this project needs a lot of different approvals if it ends up going forward, but the state law requires that the first step before any other approvals can be considered is doing an environmental review. So that's what we're doing now. We're doing the piece of the state environmental quality review where there has been a draft environmental impact statement produced, and what's before us now is to talk about that environmental impact statement, any corrections or changes that are needed to that, make sure we're looking at all the impacts of the project and mitigation measures that can help to mitigate those impacts. And then that's what the planning board will be considering. The planning board has been designated the lead agency to do that review on behalf of all of the boards and agencies who have some role in approving this project. So we started the public hearing in November. This is a continuation of the public hearing. We've also had an opportunity for people to comment in writing, and that remains open. And so we'll be continuing that hearing tonight. As I said, after the hearing portion, we'll move on to developing, the board will develop the final environmental impact statement with the applicant. And then after that is when the other agencies can begin looking at their pieces of this, including the annexation. So, and then if all of that happens, it will come back around to the planning board to look at the details of the site plan. So what we're trying to look at right now is just major environmental impacts and how they can be mitigated.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes.
For our attorney. Will there be another public hearing after this? In other words, if we're having a hearing on a draft environmental impact statement, once that process is done and we come back to do our next process here at the planning board, will there be more opportunities for the public to voice their thoughts?
Yes, there are a number of more opportunities. So within this particular process, once we get to the final environmental impact statement, I know there's a comment opportunity. Does that have to include a public hearing? I'm not sure, or just written comment. But after that process is finished, the town board and village board need to do a hearing related to the annexation. And then if it comes back around to the planning board for the site plan approval to look at actually how it's laid out, then that would also have a public hearing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, with that, I'd like to ask Dr. Rose Rudnitsky to come up, please. And if you wouldn't mind coming up here, actually, just because our speaker is right here, and otherwise the people online. Yeah, sit or stand, whatever you prefer.
Okay, great.
And just.
I'm here representing the Town Environmental Conservation Board. Dear members of the Village Planning Board, this letter offers our comments regarding the draft environmental impact statement, DEIS, for the New Paltz Apartments project. The ENCB is requesting strongly that a new wetlands inspection be done for the proposed site. The DEIS refers only to an inspection conducted by Burton R. Lowe on August 2nd, 2021. This inspection more than likely contains outdated information, as 28 months have elapsed since its completion. The ENCB requests that the town wetlands inspector conduct a full inspection of the proposed site. The ENCB further requests that the New Paltz Apartments project be regulated by the more stringent environmental code of either town or village of New Paltz. The justification for this request is because of the annexation of land from the town to the village of New Paltz. The town and village codes differ on many items, including wetlands buffers and parking requirements. As such, the more stringent code of the two should apply, as the annexation does not change the environmental characteristics that the codes were written to protect. Should the applicant have any questions about these requests, we would be happy to discuss it with them at our meetings, which are held on the third Monday of each month. Thank you for this opportunity to present to you our review of the DEIS for this project. Sincerely, signed Rich Whitney, Chair of the Environmental Conservation Board. Did you receive this?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to ask Katie Hamill Decker, please come up.
I was under the impression this was open comment, but if it must be just environmental in nature, then
It can be regarding the whole project.
okay. I think the most impactful effect of this project is that it is going to redline basically anyone who is not a young student in this town, which will be families, disabled people, veterans, seniors. Basically, all of these people by design will not have an accessible way of renting in this unit. I'm a married woman with a child. I wouldn't live in a dormitory style. A friend of mine down the block who is disabled also would not live in a dormitory style because she would like her autonomy and her independence and her privacy. And while they can't discriminate based on application, I do believe by design, the bill that they are choosing to use is discriminatory. It discriminates against familial status, disability status, age. And I think most impactful will be the fact that families cannot rent here. And they say in their actual DIS that children will not live on the premise. As you all know, the New Paltz School District has an unbelievable decline in enrollment, which long-term will lead to great financial impacts for the town. I mean, without families, we do not have a future, right? We don't have children, we don't have future homeowners, we don't have future taxpayers. I don't think anything should even remotely get off the ground unless we are talking about inclusive housing. Everything should be fair market, meaning that I should be able to rent there, you should be able to rent there, everyone should be able to rent there. If not, it's not free market, it's not free access, it's not inclusive, and it's not fair. You know, they outline all of the amenities that they, in their market study, that they felt that students needed or were lacking. And reading that as a mom, I was insulted because it said, well, they need washers and dryers, and they will have a pool, and they will have a play area, and they will have a bicycle route. And do you know who else would like that? All the children in New Paltz, all the children who are moving out, who are moving on the skirts of the school district and have hour-long bus rides because they can't afford to live in New Paltz. Those children would like those amenities. Those parents would like those amenities. Do you know what's within 10 minutes of that entire facility? All the schools in New Paltz, Lenape, Zuzine, the middle school, the high school, they're all there. Those children will have to drive past, because no children will live there, drive past this whole resort and then go to the the extremes of the town to go back to their single family debilitated home that they just happen to rent because they're left over after the college students left. I think it's an insult to taxpayers and to families to even let this get any further without demanding that it is built in a style that is conducive to all. Once that's within the plans, then yes, let's build. We need to build. But until everybody can live there, then it should not take one step further. Thank you.
Next, we have Donna Rutland, please. Hello.
And looking at the proposal, it looks as though there's going to be approximately 250 units with approximately 724 bedrooms. I want to know if the environmental impact is allowing one person per bedroom. Is that what this is based on?
I mean,
The DEIS states that they're going to be renting by the room,
Yes, so,
individual leases for each room.
Seven hundred and twenty-four beds,
I'm sorry?
724
24 beds. But what is stopping two people from renting one room? Just like they double up in the dorms, like they double up on other housing. So instead of having 724 students or residents living there, you could potentially have twice as many, which means your whole environmental impact regarding water, sewer, parking, traffic is all out of whack. They're all underestimated. So there's the potential for having a lot more students than just the 724 bedrooms.
Can I say something? Because I thought
sure.
about this. I think a solution, because a lot of people have brought up the same thing, would be to ask the developer to provide us with leases. Because if we had a copy of the lease, we would know what was allowed and what wasn't going to be allowed. Pets, extra roommate, whatever. It's usually that's set out in the lease. We don't have, they didn't provide those
They
to us.
didn't provide
Maybe
that.
that wouldn't be a bad idea to ask for.
Is to ask for a lease and also to see how the rents would compare to current rents in the village. Because right now their one bedrooms are going for about, renting a one bedroom, even a multifamily house is running about $800 a month. So, you know, if this is going to be new and fancy and having all these amenities, it's going to be a lot more than that per bedroom. So, you know, to cut costs, you know, students are going to be doubling and tripling up to get their rent down as low as possible. My other concern is while the New Paltz Apartments is only part of this annexation, so that the developer can get water and sewer coming in. There's also the possibility of developing the other lots, which will now put a burden on the village to put in extended water and sewer for any single family houses or further development he wants. And I don't know if the village has thought about the cost to maintain this, to extend it and to maintain it. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to ask Clive Jones to, please.
I asked you about the annexation process earlier.
Could you please step up so we can hear you on that?
Don't need to ask you a question because I asked about the process and when annexation would be dealt with, and that's going to be later, according to the lady there. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Susan Denton.
Just wanted to point out, I forgot to mention earlier, part of this process is that we do have a court reporter taking down all of the comments that are made, and there will be a response to those comments. So, you know, the point tonight is not to have a lot of back and forth. It's mainly to get those comments recorded.
Okay, so I'm going to try not to repeat what I've already said in the previous public hearing. I came tonight because I feel like the human beings who live in New Paltz are part of the environment. And in development, things tend to go step by step by step. And I want to make sure that at every juncture I say, at least on my own behalf, and also because I'm a member of the UACT Housing Committee, I want to say I want to urge you to be so aware of the need and for affordable housing for students and other people. The people who live here now and who can't afford to make ends meet. I really want to urge you to make sure that you're clear on each step of the way. And I respect you, and I think that you strive for that. but I also wanted you to hear my voice saying that. So thank you.
Next we have Tom Denton.
I may, I'd like to switch the order of Tom Jackie to Jackie Tom.
Sure.
Okay.
Whatever you prefer.
Just before I came here, I hurt my foot, so
Sorry to hear that.
forgive me. And first, thank you for keeping the public hearing open. I really appreciate that. I'm here once more on behalf of the UACT Affordable Housing Committee to again express our concern about the paucity of information in the New Paltz Apartments DEIS on how the 10% of affordable units will be provided in compliance with the village code. And by the way, as an aside, this is a very large project, and I hope your code would also be revised to include a higher percentage of affordable housing in very large developments. So that's an aside. This project is of particular concern because the very structure and intent is a development exclusively designed for students. There is no plan set forward on how affordable units will be set aside for the general public. Interestingly, in section 2.7, project purpose, need, and benefit, it states as a benefit of the project, and I quote, relocating students to proximate student housing reduces the potential for conflicts with non-student residents because of differing schedules, noise, and parking congestion. Yet, in a following bullet in the same section on benefits, it states that they will be, and I quote again, reserving 10% of the units for much needed affordable housing pursuant to the Village of New Paltz Affordable Housing Law, which is acutely needed within the municipality. End of quote. But with no explanation about how they will do that for the general public while not in proximity to the students, which they previously listed as a need and benefit of the development for non-student New Paltz residents. We see no other way to accommodate the intention of the 10% code than developing a separate section of the property for the 10% affordable housing. Since there is no explanation of how the 10% will be developed for the general public, we contend that the draft EIS is incomplete and should not be approved as is. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tom Denton, also in the UACT Housing Committee. Hello again, hello dog somewhere. I just want to reinforce what my colleagues on the UACT Housing Committee have said. We have yet to see, as far as I can tell, any kind of information coming from the developers about the issue of affordability in this DEIS. And to us, that is absolutely crucial. And I would also I'd like to say now that because it seems vague at this point, perhaps this is an opportunity for everyone to think creatively about how this can be met. Perhaps some modifications in the plan might make it possible to see clearly how this 10% affordability or our community members can be met. So I guess I want to look at this in perhaps a positive way. I don't think that we should move forward yet, but it's not over yet either. So I hope that the board takes in these comments, that the developer takes in these comments and can come up with something that addresses the issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to ask David Jakim to come up. Ah, okay.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. So I would like to refer to the DEIS maps in the appendix, A-5 through A-7. Many of these maps are unintelligible. They're unreadable, they're obscure. The wording and the terms are hard to find and hard to look up. A lot of the maps are improperly scaled. The scale on the maps may show 100 feet, rather 1 inch is equal to 100 feet. And I'll get into that. And so I want to go through the maps A5 through A7 briefly. So A5 is the grading and erosion map. The contours here can't be interpreted on this map. And the relationship between the walking trail and the wetlands is obscure, as is the erosion plan. A-51, the existing drainage map. The legend on the existing drainage map is illegible and unreadable even at the highest resolution. A-5.2, the green infrastructure map. There are multiple obscure terms such as GI catchment on this map. Many of the labels in the map are completely illegible even at the highest resolution. On A-5.2, the green infrastructure map, there's no legend for tree lines. To recognize the tree lines, to identify them, you need to review to the grading and erosion plan map so that you can identify the tree lines on said map. A-6, the steep slope disturbance figure map. So the steep slope disturbance figure map does not include a wetland map. The reason that you have a steep slope disturbance map is to assess the effect of steep slopes on wetlands. This is critical, and this map should include wetlands. A-7, the wetland crossing detail map. The limit of disturbance alongside the trail that crosses 2 streams is adjacent to the wetland and is less than 20 feet. However, the resolution on the map is 1 inch is equal to 50 feet. It's very hard to interpret 20 feet on a scale of 1 inch is equal to 50 feet. In fact, it's illegible and it's hard to represent, it's misrepresenting the tree line on that part of the map. These are just 7 of the maps that I'm citing, and many of the other maps are also problematic. And for people reviewing the map section in the appendix, this is a major problem. I have a master's in environmental geoscience. I was the co-chairperson of the Village Environmental Conservation Commission from 2008 to 2010. I've been reviewing environmental impact statements for a long time. And this is highly concerning for anyone who wants to deeply understand this project and all it entails.
Thank you for those detailed comments. Would it be possible to send those to us in writing to the planning board?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here tonight in the audience that wishes to make a public comment about PB 21AX? Yes, would you mind coming up and? Oh, no problem.
My name is Kitty Brown. I'm a resident of the town. Thank you so much for holding this public hearing open. And now let's see if I can get my comments to come back up. There we go. So I've tried to group my comments into categories. The first is process, and I apologize. I missed the very beginning of this, so you may have answered a lot of this already. I don't think I understand the process. None of the comments that I submitted in 2021 relative to the scoping statement were addressed in the DEIS. So how do we make sure that the comments you're hearing now will, I mean, I understand that you have a stenographer, but what is the process for making sure that they do get addressed? Not necessarily by you, but by the applicant. Seeker. I'm so confused by seeker. I don't understand the seeker annexation process. At our last meeting, Attorney Moriello explained that annexation hearings cannot be held at this point. And I looked at the seeker handbook, and they don't really explain anything about this. Would it be appropriate for the planning board attorney to explain exactly when annexation hearings can begin? It seems to me, and I'm not an expert in seeker, that hearings can be triggered as soon as the petition for annexation is presented. It says in the seeker handbook, seeker should be applied at the time the initial petitions for annexation are presented. Then it asks, can annexations associated with development proposals be reviewed separately? And the answer is no, although annexation petitions often will be the first elements of an overall action. Emily's nodding her head because she knows all this, but I can't make sense of what the timeline is for this. So if we could just get an example of in the timeline when annexation will be able to be begun. Energy efficiency. The DEIS notes that convection ranges and microwave and stovetops are more efficient than gas cookers. So does that mean that these are the appliances that will be in every apartment unit in this complex? The DEIS notes that recycling is mandatory in Ulster County and that all multifamily dwellings and apartment complexes are required to separate recyclable materials from food waste. The Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency accepts source-separated food scraps from commercial facilities, which this will be. Since facilities typically pay according to the volume of waste they generate, they can enjoy lower disposal costs by increasing composting. So we'd like to know if the project will enroll in the Partners in Composting program. Student housing need. The DEIS asserts a need for student housing, but provides no documentation or data. The applicant should provide this data. It also claims that this project will open up more housing in New Paltz. It should provide evidence to support that claim. I think the opposite is true. With a student population of about 7,000, let's say 5% of 1/4 of each graduating class decide that they want to stay, work, and raise families here. That's almost 90 new residents every year, added to an already stressed housing supply. This project actually creates demand for housing options other than the dorm style provided here. The DEIS refers to Apex Apartments in Rochester, New York numerous times, but does not provide data on how that 1,256 bed student housing project has alleviated the housing problem in Rochester, because it hasn't. According to ACT Rochester, the city has about a 10% per 1,000 residents homeless rate. With a population of 210,000, that is 21,000 unhoused people. Affordable housing need. Since I moved here in 1972, hundreds, maybe thousands of new housing units have been built. Meadowbrook, Mulberry Square, Briarwood, Southside, Bella Terra, Huguenot Apartments, The Ridge, Turtle Rock, Zero Place. There are probably others. And while Woodland Pond's 271 residential apartments and cottages can't be considered affordable, its residents moved out of homes that added to the housing supply. Yet the housing crisis in New Paltz continues to grow. The applicant should include data from County Executive Jen Metzger's presentation at a recent forum on housing and open space. The homeless and unhoused population in Ulster County statistics are grim. The current number of people needing emergency housing is up from 300 just 2 years ago to 500 today. Back to Apex Apartments. This could actually be a model for how to address our housing crisis. Two of the New Paltz project sponsors, Tom George of Commercial Street Partners and Pissarro Associates, are associated with Apex. There is one great thing that their Rochester project has that their New Paltz project does not have: elevators. We need this project to use the Apex model and switch to at least 3, maybe 4 stories to conserve both energy and open space. And we need some of the floor plans to be reconfigured from the dormitory style to more conventional 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. Local economy. The DEIS refers several times to the 2011 draft comprehensive plan. It was never adopted, but there is a ton of useful data in it, which they refer to and which I'm referring to here. Overall, with 3% of the land area of the county, New Paltz has 17% of exempt land. These exemptions represent $1.26 million in foregone revenues, and this is 12 years ago. The relatively small proportion of property in the town that is commercial and industrial, more than 80% is residential, places a high tax burden on homeowners. According to the Ulster County Real Property Tax Service, taxes in New Paltz are the highest in the county. Residential properties in the town of New Paltz carry 82.3% of the tax burden, while commercial properties account for 14%. We need more commercial properties in our community. And there is a table of a public workshop that was held while the draft plan was being held. And one of the community responses on the economy was that 79.3% of participants agreed that New Paltz needs to identify land that could be redeveloped for commercial development. This site is one of the very few where that is feasible. It also proposed a business incubation area. Recognizing the spatial constraints that SUNY New Paltz campus faces, a business incubation area has been designated to potentially accommodate the expansion of SUNY New Paltz and private developers. The town's primary industrial and large commercial development corridor along South Putt Corners Road and State Route 32 provides the ideal opportunity for the development of business and industrial incubation facilities, providing not just jobs, but careers. So in summary, can we pinpoint where in this process annexation hearings can begin? And full disclosure, I will begin serving on the New Paltz Town Board in January. Annexation of this property is an opportunity for the town and village to solve some of our infrastructure and housing problems, especially housing for all our demographic groups, as well as good jobs that pay enough so residents can become a permanent part of our community. I acknowledge that the developers are in the for-profit student housing business. I ask that they acknowledge that our local governments are in the decidedly unprofitable protection of health, safety, well-being of our citizens business. We need to come up with a plan that meets both our needs. But it feels that by proposing only student housing, the developers, the away team, ran out onto our home field and said, okay, play ball. And by the way, we're up first and we're starting on third base. So I'm looking forward to working on ways our home team can welcome all the players to start at the home plate. And if I can torture this analogy a little more, let's cover all the bases. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment on this application this time? Anyone online would like to speak? Okay. Seeing none, I'd like to ask the board, if we think that the public hearing, should be closed for now, or, held open another session. Like to remind people that after it's closed, we will be accepting, written comments for another 10 days. So this will not be your last opportunity to, have your voice
I'd like
heard.
to make a motion to keep the public hearing open.
Second it.
Okay,
Aye.
so, well, I'm not sure.
Request from SUNY campus to keep it open. They actually had a forum on the 30th. And it was very sparsely attended, and they felt like, the group that put it on felt like it was done too much at the last minute, and they felt like it was very important for the students to have more of a chance to look at it and respond to it, especially some of the other departments. And so I was asked if that was a possibility. So I would agree with Amy. Keep it open.
Okay.
Can I just ask, do people think that you need more time for oral comments or written comments? Because,
Both.
okay, just.
Yeah, I am concerned that it's going to impact all of the other work that we're doing and have kind of a ripple effect to the rest of the projects. And we have a number of new applications that, we haven't been able to get to.
Well, this one is so huge. I'm still finding things. I mean, they kept talking about, for example, the stone dust path, and they never mentioned the word asphalt. And if you look closely at the project, it says asphalt stone dust. And then I started looking into it. And I'm like, oh my God, the diagram doesn't even show where the asphalt is. And here I missed. There's just so much to this project. I feel like it's really important because of the size of the project that we take our time. And
Right, okay. Well, if the rest of the board is in agreement, then I support leaving it open for another session, adjourning the public hearing until another date. I guess if we were to look at the schedule, what would be the best date that we could fit in another hearing?
second is the first meeting in January 2nd or January 16th would, I don't know when.
I'd like to make a suggestion that we wait until the students get back, because if we're concerned about them voicing their opinions, when they're home for Christmas break is probably not the best time to have a public hearing.
Right, yeah. So that would be end of January. I'm not even sure our second meeting would be. Right. Okay.
What is the date of that meeting?
Okay. Yes.
Question.
I'm sorry, we're past the public hearing comment section, but
Question.
okay, if it's brief, then we can.
So you've received a number of comments. You will receive comments, no doubt, in writing over the next few days. Will the responses to those or actions that are going to be taken in response to those comments be known to those of us before the next meeting?
No, we cannot provide responses until we gather all the public comments and they're compiled and passed along to the developer. So pushing this back will mean that these aren't answered or no changes are made to the application during that time. But if this is how the board feels, then I think we should adjourn the public hearing until the February 6th meeting. So
I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing for tonight and to re-adjourn on February 6th.
yeah, I don't think we want to use the language to
Don't
close
say
the
close,
public
yeah.
hearing, but
For tonight.
just
Let's adjourn it.
We'll adjourn for tonight. On February 6th.
yes. Okay. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you, everyone who came. Oh. No. Okay. We need to continue our meeting, so if you could please Okay. Thanks. I'd also like to note, I'm sorry, I should have done this early, but we got written comments from Katie Hamill, Kelly Du Bois, and Robert Cook. And those are entered into the record and will be compiled along with the spoken comments. Next, I'd like to move on to the application review section. So PB 23-18 to Taylor Street. Right. Evening. Hello. Good evening. Dave Toder. This is Patrick Pinino. I'm the owner of the property. Is that for Taylor Street? Oh, no, that's I can post that. Well, could you start out by just giving us an overview of the project?
Yes, happy to do that. So this is in the Green Acres Zero Net Energy Community Development behind my market. And
What is your position?
I'm the architect representing the project.
Thank you.
Welcome. So it's a new single family home on one of the lots and around Taylor and Cooper Street at that intersection. It's adjacent next to the townhomes that are going to be building next season. And as you can see from the plans you've received, it's a single family home, not super large. It fits on the site, no variances requested. And we're happy to answer any questions that you might have about it.
Okay. And so it's a single family home. There's just how many bedrooms? How many bathrooms?
3 bedroom, 3 bath, I think. Let me look at my plans.
Geothermal.
Yes, it will be a geothermal like the other Zero Net Energy homes and insulated concrete form walls, triple pane glass, and solar panels. That's right. That's the generation.
Talk to David Shepherd how to get, we have one apartment building that has nothing like that. And how to help people understand that it's not impossible or, and he didn't get back to me, but.
Right. Well, we hope Zero Place would kind of show that it can be done.
Yeah.
They haven't yet started beating down our doors, but I think all the occupants are very happy with Zero Place. Hopefully the community at large as well.
Okay. Well, that's fine as long as they can see us. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. So, okay, great. So it has very sustainable design. And then there's just one entrance, right? There's no separate apartment unit or separate kitchen area.
That's correct.
This is just gonna
Single
be,
family home
yeah.
and with an unfinished basement. And there's just the one, front porch and door, and downstairs is a slider, 6-foot sliding glass door. And another door onto the back porch.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, and we did have our code officer review the site plan and didn't find any issues with the site plan. Everything like minimum lot size, coverage, setbacks, that all looks good. So does the board have any questions?
I'm just curious how long you expect to take to build the house?
4 or 5 months, give or take. Some of it kind of dribbles and travels along the finishing, grading. Some of it depends on the season in terms of that final. But it'll roughly I think the townhomes and this house will be building at about the same time. So those 4 lots. I think that's how Anthony Abbey is planning to.
Are you gonna have a plan to bring in your materials? Or are you just gonna do it when you feel like it, or?
Plan to bring in materials? How do
Yeah.
you mean?
When you bring in all the materials to build the house, are you gonna just bring it in when you feel like it, or do you have like a schedule of when you're gonna bring it, what roads you're gonna use to bring it, that kind of a thing? I'm curious about.
Well, I'm not the builder. I'm the designer, the architect. And so the builder is the one who would typically schedule it. But, this particular project, it's a single family home. So generally speaking, the village isn't, and the building department aren't asking for scheduling and which roads. So 32 will be how most of the material comes in, because that's how you get to Montague View and Cooper to Taylor. So no is the short answer to your question.
Obviously, this is, in my opinion, an interesting site to build a house. The slope on the westerly end, steep. I guess it could be 8-10 feet from the high point to the low point, which would be your westerly neighbor. I would hope that you're pitching all the water towards the east, off the roof drains, off the driveway.
Well, the property has its existing slope and it's a walkout basement design. So that should address as well as possible the 8 to 10 foot drop. That's perfect, essentially, for, floor height system. We're very close. They do good work out there, the grading and the site stone retaining walls. And there's a full stormwater system. So more care, I know, was taken on the townhomes design to make sure that the water would be pitched towards the street from the roofs. This lot, with streets on 3 sides, it's a little bit less of that concern because downhill is also part of the stormwater system existing. So to some extent, this one it's a single family home. It's on a fairly spacious lot, or sufficiently spacious. I don't believe any special stormwater. Well, that's not fair to say. It's going to be LEED compliant, and so some of the LEED requirements are for gentle slopes, and that's one reason that they have those nice retaining walls around the existing homes. And so there is care taken to make sure that there won't be any stormwater effects, though mostly it's modest. The scope of the stormwater being generated is single family homes. It's a little less than some of the bigger adjacent properties.
And I agree, it is a single family home. However, that is a very steep slope. And I do know that the neighbor to the west has done some work to mitigate the water that comes off that slope. I know you're going to do everything you can to not make that worse. I'm just trying to look at your pictures here.
You mean Rich Eisenberg and
No.
Tim Taylor?
I don't know the names. I'm just
Right,
looking
right.
at your plan.
Yeah, you do.
Of the build out immediately west. Immediately west of your lot.
Right. And his is kind of flattish
Yeah.
to some extent. Yeah, and
Right,
his
bottom of
is,
the hill.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly, and he's been consulted on both. You know, he knows those, like his Jason, he knows his neighboring properties are being developed.
Yeah.
And so, that's one reason on the townhomes, we've got the visual, the privacy hedges. And so the other thing that's a factor in terms of, steep slopes is this, the property line here is there's a manhole, there's a whole stormwater, that runs right along this drainage right of way. So that kind of fixes some of the, it's a property line, so that kind of fixes grade anyway, but
Wait, so
Yeah.
that 20-foot wide drainage easement, is there anything constructed in that to help with the stormwater?
there's stormwater infrastructure in that. It is utilized, that
Okay.
right of way. Yeah, there's a
I see.
manhole kind of halfway down that slope.
Okay, but you're right. That's all true. However, the water coming off the westerly slope of your house, the westerly peak of your house, is not going to go into that pipe that's in the ground. The pipe in the easement takes it off the streets. Yes. My concern is the water coming off your roof.
Okay.
I don't want that to impact your neighbor. That's all.
No, the water's not allowed to cross the property. That's
Okay,
specifically.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
you're not supposed to do that.
right.
Yes.
So where's the roof water gonna go?
Yeah, are there any?
Where's the water
specific-
from your westerly roof going to go? It's going to go down the drain pipe to the ground
Mhm.
and
Well, I would say, given your concerns, that it should be piped to the east.
that would be great. Because that's also a nice slope. It goes right down to the road. To the east, to the southeast, to the south, all the way from your neighbor, all towards the street.
Does this all go into that station that you saw?
No, this is all stormwater. This isn't wastewater.
But I know that the wastewater system takes on stormwater when it rains.
When it rains. We don't know yet, because we haven't seen the infiltration study. That's- That doesn't stop. You'll continue to work on I for the next 50 years. Anyway, that's, look, I'm not an engineer. All I know is that's a steep slope. We want to make sure your neighbor doesn't get upset. And if there's an easy way to mitigate that by putting pipes in the ground that takes the water off the westerly slope of the roof and just moves it towards the east, the southeast, the
Right.
northeast.
Or if need
That's
be, right into the stormwater system direct.
I don't know if that's legal. Somebody's got to tell me. I've never heard.
I think that this has been referred to the DPW to review,
Oh, okay,
so.
okay.
Is that accurate?
This is the first, well, so far, this is the first introduction of the project, so.
Okay. Oh, I thought that in the zoning review, there was a referral, but maybe that was what
It was
something we should
recommendation,
do.
yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
that's something that we should do. then. it's
Okay.
better to talk about it.
Great,
That's fine.
yeah, yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, don't take my comments in a negative way. Not at all.
No, we want to
The
address
subdivision needs to
everything.
be finished, and I think that's great. You know,
Okay, Rich, did you have a question or comment?
Yes, thank you. Sorry I'm not present tonight, but I appreciate the opportunity to ask a question or have an explanation. There's a proposed 24 by 24 garage on the plan, if I understand it correctly, as well
Future.
as, yes, but proposed, meaning it's part of what's being applied to approve, correct?
That is a good question. To some extent, we wanted to make sure we were giving the board all the information we possessed so that there were no future surprises. And we wanted to make sure that we had room for a garage in our site plan, but I don't know how soon one is planning to be constructed. And as I think generally speaking, that might be a separate approval because it's future. Do you plan to build your garage soon? Like within the next couple of years so that you'd want it approved here? Okay, so then they might need more information about it. That might be where Rich is going with his question. I don't know, maybe you could, I should let you finish your commentary perhaps.
Yeah, that's all right. And I'm sorry about the big brother style, but so yes, I was asking whether we're being asked to approve the garage, and if so, of course, it would need more information. And if so, and also if there's currently a 4-car assumed asphalt or at least driveway, how would the garage be accessed, and would you maintain 4-car parking in the driveway and have a garage? So I think if the garage is just meant to say, yeah, look, one would fit, and you're coming back for an application for that at some point in the future, then maybe we would leave it as is. But if it's the garage is being considered as part of the application, then I think we'd want more information about the construct of the garage, but also how it's accessed and how much of that likely asphalt parking is going to remain including the garage, because that would seem like space for a lot of cars and a fair amount of pavement.
Right. It isn't drawn, but I anticipated that, the driveway would kind of extend toward it. You'd effectively lose at least one of those parking spaces because that would be the drive-through towards the garage, and it would all work out. It looked like it wasn't going to, go over the percentage coverage, impervious coverage required. It looked like that would also be okay. That's again why I kind of mapped it out, so I could see that it would work. But I think we're not. The reason I drew it this way is because I believe this is what is being built, and I think it's enough years off that we don't want to say, oh, let's throw in the garage right now.
Right.
Okay.
Separate
So
from
we're not looking to approve the garage right now. We just didn't want to surprise you later with a garage. We wanted to let you know about the future, but that would be a separate approval by the planning board for the garage in future.
That's fine. And so the garage is not included in any of the bulk table calculations like lot coverage?
That's correct. It is not. Right.
All right. Well, are there any other questions from the board right now? If not, I'd like to get a motion to declare this as seeker type 2.
So move.
Second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
And I would also like to get a motion to set escrow at $750.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'd like to also refer this to the DPW. So I'd like to get a motion to refer this project to the DPW for review.
Don't move.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 On that, I'm assuming there's a stormwater plan that was done as part of the subdivision approval, so that's why I'm just hesitating. I'm sure the DPW will be able to look at that and how it fits together.
Okay.
To clarify, I believe Alex made that recommendation because ultimately sewer and water would, hook up would be required.
Great.
I'll look at it through my end, because some of that is the builder has the answers to the specifics you want. He's been doing it successfully with steep slopes and, all through this. This is, nearing the 20th house, so.
Great.
We'll address it in advance.
Into the steep slope, he doesn't cut and fill, he puts them into the slope.
Right, and following the lead, lead is concerned about these exact issues, and so that's why, you can't have too steep a slope right near the house, it has to be gentle, it's exactly in line with those comments, so.
And lastly, I would like to set a public hearing. Autumn, would the next meeting be possible, or do we need that one for other, is that gonna be pretty full already?
I think based on the fact that, I think it's going to be pretty full. I think we're
Right.
better put it.
Yeah, if 184, yeah.
But it was January 3rd. That's a second, thank you.
I'd like to get a motion to schedule the public hearing for our January 2nd meeting.
So much.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and so I think that's all for tonight, and we
Okay,
will see
thank you
you
very much.
Thank you.
in January.
Very good. Happy holidays.
Thanks.
So
No.
what is the line of, there's Jesse and Roy, they're sitting in.
184. I'm so excited.
Sorry, yes.
Thank you.
Um,
Have a good evening.
thanks.
Thank you.
So next, we have PB 22-10, 11 Water Street. Sorry, we can't see you right now, but if you could just introduce yourselves, so we know who's online.
Yes, Jesse Halliburton, and I think my partner Ryan is also here.
I am, yes. Ryan Giuliani.
Okay. Sorry, 1 second. Could you just briefly describe the updates to the site plan that you sent out?
Yes, of course. So based on our last meeting's discussion, we spoke about land banking some parking spaces, and one was along those 2 parking spaces along the northern edge of the property we removed for now. Obviously, it's land banked in case we have to, if there's a problem like we talked about at the last meeting, we can always make them parking spaces again. But this gave us an opportunity to do some landscaping there, and we had our landscape architect spec all the plants for that area. Additionally, we were able to continue the sidewalk in a more attractive arc across the front of the property. So now it doesn't turn into the driveway and onto the sidewalk that leads to the front door of the lobby. So that was the northern side of the property. And then the southern side of the property, as we spoke about, we just extended the delivery area to encompass one of a third parking space, to make it, that much more give that much more space to the delivery trucks, although I think what we had there before would have been sufficient, but you know, this way it will. We're land banking that spot as well.
Great, thank you. So I see the sidewalk along the road is just labeled as a painted sidewalk. So I assume that's just going to be lines on the asphalt?
Yes, that where the fire lane is, that is correct. That's that mountable curb that, you know, if we had extended it into a sidewalk, it wasn't going to work for the site's constraints. So yes, it would be a typical of what you're seeing in a lot of streets these days, is this painted area that is, you know, clearly marked as a walkway.
Mm-hmm. I mean, would it be possible to do some kind of other material there, like a concrete or textured paver that would make it more visually obvious that it was a sidewalk and make it a little more attractive for pedestrians?
We could certainly explore it. Yeah. Let's see why not. I mean, you know, our intention was to paint it that would make it, you know, visible for pedestrians to be able to walk across it. But you know, and that would be clearly marked, but yeah, we can explore some options.
Okay. Yeah, I do think that would help the site. And I mean, I'd love to see some similar thing happening in front of the main entrance rather than just you know, painted loading zone lines. I think that would make the entrance there a little more inviting and attractive, but something to consider there.
Yes.
And let's see. Did you, with the reduction in parking spaces, did you also provide a like a narrative or some kind of justification for that explanation?
You mean as far as the land banking is concerned?
No, as far as like the calculation, the parking calculation.
So I think we might be mixing two options. We talked about either justifying a reduced number of parking spaces,
Right.
saying we just don't need that many because of the overlap of the uses, or alternatively, land banking them. If we're going to land bank them, we need to actually design the spaces into the site plan and then, you know, have that as a backup where the applicant could use those spaces if needed. So I think we have to go one way or the other.
Mm.
But you know, to that point, I would say that that's probably, you know, we are agreeing to that. So in the event that there was a problem, like this would have, I'd imagine this would be written into the resolution. And, you know, this way you can hold us to the fact that we are agreeing to it.
Sure, but they would need to be designed in the plan as to where they would go. So we would need to have like a second alternate plan where if those spaces are needed, we know where they would be built. But what I was trying to suggest is we may not need to do that if you can write us a paragraph explaining why you don't need that many spaces because of the shared parking between the uses.
Understood. Yes, we can definitely do that.
Either way, yeah.
We can absolutely provide that. Not a problem.
Hi, Zach, is it possible I could jump in for a second?
Yeah, just, is this Rich?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, please
Thanks. We might also want to consider splitting the difference between the land banking of parking spots and the overlap question around the uses, because it seems as though there are two spots that over where the loading dock exists, or maybe that's only one, or once was two. So I guess I'm just letting the applicant know that if the math around the overlap of uses doesn't work and the spots that are eliminated are insufficient, or there was an interest in doing both, that loading area could probably be a land banked spot, and then the others be the ones that are not required because of the overlap in uses.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I didn't mean
Yeah.
to say one or the other, like you couldn't combine them, but we need to
Right.
have some kind of plan.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. A hybrid is another option, but we just need to hear from the applicant what they want to propose exactly. If I could ask, I have two other questions about the current plan. One is, Zach, I really like your ideas of the potential for like hardscaping or something that just continues to improve the design of the front of the hotel, and rather than a lot of painted hash lines and things. The other question I have around that sidewalk is where it terminates at the south side of the building. It seems to just terminate and not align with anything in particular. And I also recall that I think there's a stairway or an entrance to the rail trail on that south side property. So I'm wondering if the way that sidewalk terminates could be rethought so that it doesn't just end in the parking spot and not have any thought as to how one might walk all the way past your hotel, admire it, and then walk up to the trail.
Sure, I think that's, a very good question, Rich. And yes, we have discussed a stairwell that would lead from the street to the trail. We hadn't settled on it, but it's definitely, there's been some mixed reviews around that particular stairwell leading up to the trail. And my feeling is, I think it's a good thing. And I even had a comment from one of our neighbors that, asked if we were open to putting that stairwell leading up to the trail. And, my feeling is yes. Ryan? Ryan, are you there?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Yes, I'm in agreement with that, Jesse.
And you know what, Rich, further to that, we had discussed that we're in the process of planning a renovation on the house. We have had every intention of kind of connecting, we'd have an area even in front of that building that we could show down the road, once we finish that plan to it be almost an extension of that sidewalk.
And thank you. And noting that it's already an informal but relatively frequently used place where people access. So you're probably either going to want to formalize it or expect that people will walk through it.
Okay, so I would agree with that. Yeah, so we can update that plan accordingly and get it in front of you so you guys can, review it.
And thank you for the last question I had, and forgive me if we're returning to something that's been discussed, but it has new implications given the changes to the sidewalk. Can I be reminded, please, which of the entrances and exits, the curb cuts, like which are one way, which are two way, and which are in versus out, from maybe starting from the north down?
Yes, north is in, middle is in and out, and the end is out. The south side is out.
And I I could see why the center one would be helpful to be in. If someone were to come down Mohonk, they would be able to enter the hotel there. Otherwise, they would have to make that right turn off Mohonk that all of us know is not something we want to encourage or increase. But is there a rationale or a necessity for that one to be two-way? Like, I know your traffic folks aren't here, and I'm not sure if any of the other board members have a consideration about that. But as we continue to, and I've heard the explanation about there's a stop sign there and there's stop traffic. But I just, as we continue to try to think about like what that intersection is already like and how we're gonna try to have this plan make it not worse or maybe even better. I just wonder why there's a necessity to have an exit there as well as an entrance
Sure.
on the center.
I understand. So, you know, I think I think the idea of having that middle ingress and egress, or egress in this case, is that the sight line for people there is pretty much wide open. And, you know, we have that whole northern section of the parking lot where there would be cars. And those cars that are coming from that northern section are more likely to go out that middle drive, that egress out of that middle driveway, than they would to go to the south side, where all of the cars south of that driveway would go out the south side. So I think ultimately you have a situation where half of our cars will go out the south side, and, you know, maybe half of our cars will go out the middle section, which is not a bad thing because you're not taxing just one area. Now you have two areas where cars can actually exit.
Yeah, the only difference is the one area in the center, they're exiting into a complicated intersection.
Yes, I see your point, but again, you know, I'll just refer back to the sight line, and everybody's having that sight line of each other at a stop sign. You know, everybody generally is stopped there, and you know, even the people that are exiting our property will also be stopped and be able to see one another at their respective stop signs.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't think the south entrance or exit is that much better. It's still a very complicated intersection you're exiting into with cars coming from multiple different directions.
And, you know, Zach, I also want to just point out that, you know, at 13 Water Street, you know, we have actually every intention of making that site better and giving better sight line to, you know, all vehicular traffic there. You know, the main thing that we're going to be doing there is taking off about roughly about an 8-foot section off of the front of that building that will open up that entire area. And then, you know, lastly, Rich, I would say that, you know, the lobby entrance is also directly across from there. So like for somebody, you know, like taxis that are going to come in on the north side, if they're going to go, they're going to drop people off and then potentially just, you know, make that left turn and be able to go out right at that stop sign. Or they may choose to go to the south side, but having the two options is, you know, I feel better than it would be to have just one option.
Thanks for the explanation. Like I said, I want to make sure I'm not taking up more time than maybe the rest of the board thinks about this. I do know that the comments we've gotten about this from our traffic engineers has been pretty limited. And I know that they've also taken a good long time to get us information. But I just want to make sure, we only got one shot to do this, and I just want to make sure that what is being considered is the most, that gives the consideration to the most safety and the most conducive to flow of cars in and out of there, given the complexity of those intersections. So I don't know if maybe there's a referral to Holt and say, can you please just tell us, is this the best possibility, or is this just the most convenient? Because I would be interested. I'm not an engineer about it, but it just seems like something that we should make sure we get right. Thanks.
When was the last comment that we got from DTS Provident? Okay, well, maybe we can review that before next time and make sure that they have the latest site plan and just
September 19th, but I don't know if that's the latest.
Yeah. There've been quite a few changes since then, so my suggestion might be to include the narrative that the applicant's preparing for the parking justification and get it all to DTS Provident one more time with a couple key points that we want to make sure they've signed off on.
Yeah,
I think that's
just so you guys are aware, I don't, our traffic engineer is in, basically in process of responding to GTS Providence, bullet points.
Yeah, Rich, we actually do have a response from November 13th from them. So, if there are some specific questions, additional questions you want to ask, we could pass those along. But I think we should also wait and hear from your consultant. Okay.
I had two questions.
Yes.
I believe you may have answered this to me before, but when I see box culvert written on there, I just want to make sure that that the stream there, the culvert is kept daylighted. In other words, you're not going to bury the stream that goes up.
No, Rachel, we have no intention of burying it.
Thank you. I just wanted to double make sure. And then the other thing was, I believe that one of the arborists recommended cutting down the black walnuts. Are you going to cut those down or leave them up?
There are some diseased trees there right now. I can't be sure, Rachel, which ones they are, but if they were marked in red, that happened almost well over a year ago. So, I don't think that they were necessarily salvageable.
So there's no new trees marked because I remember when you first marked those trees. And so there's no new trees that have you changed your mind about which trees you're going to be able to save or keep?
No, actually, it's a very good question. And the answer is no. Most of those trees belong to the town, the village, and are, have a conservation easement that rides along that property. We are just proposing that we're going to take care of them.
Okay. And there was only one, there was a mulberry tree that I thought was worth saving down there. And then, but the other trees looked like they were all going to be saved. But then I saw that someone had recommended cutting down the black walnuts because they drop things, because they are kind of a nuisance. But if there's a way that the oaks and everything can be saved, it's that they're apparently been damaged, and they have cankers on them, like you said. So I would just hope that care is being taken to try to keep those trees alive, even if they're not on your property, they're enhancing your property by being there.
Yes.
And create a shade canopy and a visual barrier and all the other good things that trees do.
Yeah, and wildlife refuge, absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you on all of that. I can't really do anything with those trees until given permission. So look, as soon as we're given permission, we'll be able to address their health for sure.
Who would give you permission to address the health of the
The Wallkill Valley Land Trust.
Okay.
Okay.
So to that, I think the process is that you need to go to the village board, right, to discuss the interface with the rail trail, the board of trustees, and then once you have their agreement, then discuss with the land trust. That's usually how that works, right?
Yes, correct. As far as I'm aware, yes. I
So
mean, we've already had conversation with both of them pretty early on, and they basically told us what we could do and what we couldn't do, and so we've changed. We've adjusted our plan to fit those parameters. And at this point, depending on what's in store for us in our next meeting, we would be working behind the scenes to discuss with the village board as well as the Wallkill Valley Land Trust.
Great.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board this time? If not, I'd like to set a public hearing. Autumn, can we have time at our second meeting in December, or do we need to, does this need to go into?
Substantial and might garner comment, and then we have a lot of other business to address in the next meeting.
Right.
That's.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I'd like to get a motion to schedule the public hearing for our first meeting in January 2nd.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Are we using the plans as they stand now to share with the public for the hearing, or are we expecting a revised set based on what you just talked about?
So the only significant change would be the sidewalk or that connection to the rail trail. Yeah, I would prefer the public be commenting on the site plan with those changes. So if you could get that to us as soon as possible, and then we can do the public notice with those.
I'll be out of town. Just so you know.
So
Make sure you have a
have we
public
decided that we're gonna take those parking spots and save them for later, or are we just gonna take them away? Have we decided?
I mean, I think that's up to the applicant to decide. There's certainly like one in the loading zone that could be designated for future use.
Well, the other two could be designated also and not used now, and then he already gave us permission at the last meeting that he was at, that if we decided to hold off on the two on the end for visual reasons, since it was blocking all the pretty stuff on the trail, and we decided not to have them now, that if we think that there's a problem a year and a half from now,
Yeah.
that he's willing, even if it's.
I mean, that's what this is
Back in.
showing, right?
So the question is, do we want to excuse them from those two spots forever? Or do we want to hold them as spots and give ourselves the option of putting them back in later? That's the question.
I would be happy to excuse them from that parking requirement if they provide us with a justification explaining.
So
why.
we're saying that we're gonna take away those two spots with the justification, and then we're gonna hold the third spot by the loading zone in abeyance in case we need it later, and then they could always use it as a spot if it's needed.
That would be agreeable to me. I think, ultimately it's up to the applicant, what they want to do.
I was just curious, like, which plan we're gonna have at the public hearing. That was my question.
Right.
Just stick with what we have for the public hearing and, describe that those things may change.
Okay.
Because I'm
Yeah.
concerned about another plan coming in that you all don't have a chance to look at
Good point.
before the hearing.
Right.
Well, I have every intention of, I have a meeting tomorrow with my group to, and like I said, our traffic engineer was already working on the comments from DTS Provident. We'll get you as much, we'll get you everything you need, including, our comments to DTS's Providence comments. We'll add the walkway from the street to the rail trail. And, I'll even try to come up with a different source material for that sidewalk for us to look at. And then you'll have everything you need. And, from there, you can use that plan or not, or either way, we could show both plans at public hearing.
Okay, yeah, that sounds fine to us.
Okay, and Amy, to your point, I don't want it. I don't want to be the reason why you guys set a precedent for anyone else. So I would always, I'll just defer to committing to bringing those spots back if there was a problem. But I'm confident there won't be a problem.
Okay, and I guess the only other thing to mention or discuss is that we can complete the SCAF Part 2 at that meeting where we do the public comment when we have, all the comments from the traffic engineers and, all the final ducks in a row. So I guess either that meeting or the meeting after.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that's all for tonight then. Thank you for coming by.
Yes, thank you, and I super appreciate all of your time, and have a nice night.
Thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Out of town.
Sure.
Yeah.
Out of town.
Two out of town for the meeting.
I'll be here.
I'll be here.
Rich, will you be present on January 2nd?
Yes, I will be.
There you go.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, with that, I'd like to get a motion to adjourn the meeting. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.